guys, welcome to TBS. I have a brand new deck, the Deviant Moon. I never wanted this deck really, but when I saw it in person with the colors, I realized why it was important. It has really good figures on it. It's just that for some reason when it's on Pinterest or something, when you're looking on it, it just looks kind of like it has a matte finish, but it really doesn't. It's actually pretty detailed. So I like it a lot better in person, and we're going to use it today. It's my first time using it. I already have shuffled it a lot, so it's already kind of bending, but oh well. So today we're going to talk about Fort Hood, and the question, is Fort Hood a death trap? I know I shouldn't be laughing, but it's pretty sad. If you're like me, who watched the press conference that the mom of Vanessa, the sister of Vanessa, the representative of Killeen, that part of Texas, and the lawyer, all talking about the problems at Fort Hood. And I don't know if any of you noticed, but there was no men in the crowd and there was no men behind the ladies talking. And that really bothered me, because obviously that means they are not representing themselves to take care of the ladies on the base. But anyway, so what I wanted to see today is there's been Greg Morales has been missing, and then they found him a year later, but that was about him hanging out with people like that were doing stuff that wasn't good, and they kind of took advantage of him and stuff. I'm sure that he was either shot or took drugs, and that's why they put his body there. That was not having to do with anything at Fort Hood per se. That was just he was getting divorced, and then he wanted to have a good time and just got in with the wrong crowd that night. So there was nothing he did wrong per se, like that had anything to do with Fort Hood. But Fort Hood is still has him as a deserter, which isn't true. He just got hurt. But when the medical stuff comes back, maybe they'll change it, I hope. If not, that sucks. And 4 years ago, 9 privates were killed in a training exercise where you go over water in the tank. Well, the water was too much in the river, and they got blown away by the water, and they all drowned. And that was 9 people, some of them very accomplished. And you could blame Fort Hood for that too, because they didn't test, like, even though the water was a certain level, they could have tested it and seen if it was safe, but they just went on along with the exercise without testing it, and that's why that accident happened. I personally think that Fort Hood is too large to take care of all of its people. It's just like too gigantic to have a system that is accountable for everybody. And the fact that they do not have cameras everywhere or hardly anywhere means that it's pretty much a death trap. It's something horrible waiting to happen, because you have a lot of people under pressure in the same area. And of course, it's kind of like a city within a city, but all these people are having to do aggressive adrenaline type activities, which of course is going to make people have reactions that are bigger than normal civilians. And that's why today Vanessa is missing. Now, her mom thinks that they should look in the tunnels and all, but as you know, if you watch my stuff, then you'll know that I already am sure where she is and everything. But what I want to find out right now is Fort Hood going to change and do better? And is this stuff going to keep happening and ladies won't be safe there? Five of Wands, Queen of Cups, World, King of Wands. Okay, so this is just saying that the base is its own world, it's its own completion, and it shouldn't be, because they should be having people getting ready to go out into the world better, but instead they're just having people get ready to be good at Fort Hood, if that makes sense. There's a bunch of men that are having a lot of passion for their careers and for other things, and having ladies around them, some of them, is dangerous because they don't have a feeling for that. Like, Vanessa loved her job and she loved the army, but of course love doesn't mean anything in Fort Hood, perhaps, except for love of country and a few other things. And there is a lot of fighting there. Okay, so death here. You see in the background, there's an industrial structure and ships going into the water, sinking. And you have death as the pale horse. And it's definitely showing that the thing about life is that it is actually dangerous. This card is. Of course, we know a lot about death, the death card, but this card is a little bit special because it has death as a lady. And that could be poignant when we're talking about Vanessa's plight here. The Ace of Cups, the creativity of love, of course, that's not really wanted at Fort Hood. But they do like the tradition of having things built on top of each other, their hierarchy, and having certain money built up, certain skills built up. But there is a lot of regret and a lot of bad things going on. Nine of Wands, Three of Cups, Empress, and Seven of Cups. So, because there's so much that can happen there and people can decide a lot of different things to do, things will keep getting worse and worse until there are checks and balances put in place that are a lot better, different, and stronger than what there are now. This whole thing has been about ladies so far, and I'm very reluctant to say that the Empress would be wanted at Fort Hood. You know what I mean? So then we have the Three of Cups, which is about celebration, and I'm gonna take that as like getting drunk, and the Nine of Wands, of course, is like what it feels like to have these problems. So obviously there's stuff going on. We can trust that that soldiers are going to become restless, and some of them are going to party, and having a melting pot at Fort Hood that large, nothing more can happen. It's like a can of worms being ready to be opened. Okay, well, we have heartbreak, chaos. We have like willpower and creative spark. pages are under the others. They're the privates. And they don't get the protection that they should. Because they're the youngest and they're starting out, they shouldn't be looked on as the lowest rung. They should be looked on as seedlings that you should fix up to have a good start in life. Instead, we have generals and chaos and heartbreak and this poor page has to navigate his way around, and it's really hard. All right. Okay. There's a lot of people that work at the base that know that bad things are going on, that things should be more tight, as in like a better run ship, if you want to call it that. But whenever they try to tell someone about it, the chain of command is not set up to take information. It's set up to give information and control it. That's how an army is run, but during peacetime on a base, it doesn't work that well. And history has shown this over and over again. Fort Hood is just getting too into its own problems. Soon it will be a big problem. Having everybody work on the same kind of thing as a team, and then expecting everyone to watch out for each other as a team, but then the lowest person gets crapped on. Okay, and this is actually all saying pretty much the same thing. That there's no way that Vanessa, Greg, and these other people, the reason why it seems like there's a big conspiracy or wall around these people that are getting hurt, even if it isn't Fort Hood's doing, is because these kids do not trust Fort Hood to take care of them. And so no matter their demise, they're definitely in danger. It seems like there's nothing parents can do except for tell their children not to go there or not to enlist. But the problem with that is that it isn't going to change anything, because people are still going to be going. So okay, so we have justice is a two-edged sword. Everyone knows that. But to surrender is to gain knowledge. These two things don't really go together, and they're definitely not going together at Fort Hood. If you remember, the Empress wasn't wanted at Fort Hood, but the Emperor is. But even he doesn't have as much power as he thinks he does. It's this core group of people that are almost the highest up that really run everything. And having a good old boys mentality will ruin the army. It won't make it stronger, because it isn't about infantry anymore. It's about technology. So having ladies in the army is just something they're going to have to face is normal. They could have a new infancy. They could change if they wanted to. Because if they're strong enough to do what they think they do, they're strong enough to change. This is saying if a male governor, senator, representative got involved in the women's movement here, that it would be a lot better for them. More money too, of course. And then they wouldn't be getting this problem of one eye or one hand in, one hand out as far as Fort Hood is concerned of helping these people. Because there's so many cultures going on at Fort Hood, it kind of feels like a prison to everybody, and they all have gangs of who they belong to. But temperance can be taught. Skills to deal with it can be taught. And diplomacy can be taught. And being able to juggle what they need to do good as soldiers can be taught. So pretty much Fort Hood is going down a rabbit hole because they're doing things antiquated and they need to change a bunch of stuff. Ladies aren't exactly safe there, it's true, and neither are minorities, but there is an impetus to change, and it isn't all bad there. Yeah, there's lots that can be done. And it's exciting to see that a lot of people now are starting to see what we see out as civilians. That they're hopelessly lost in how much they're not doing as far as technology, as far as getting everything up to date, as far as being like other bases. And Texas doesn't like change, but it's going to have to change. The way it is and how it used to be isn't actually going to work anymore. And Fort Hood is just showing that. It's like the fish in the fishbowl. Having somebody there that has intuition, but also someone that has military experience will be very good. And Vanessa could have been that person if that guy didn't decide to make a bad decision and go after her. There is something that the people at Fort Hood value that we do, and that's truth. Really, truly. Soldiers are truthful. They're taught to be truthful. When people get up in ranks and they get more power, they become less truthful, but they still value it and respect it. And that can be used too. If Fort Hood became more political, there wouldn't be as many secrets. I know that sounds really totally off. How can that be? But the way that politics are, grassroots politics are around Killeen, is that they're run by people that are in the regular community. So it would be different. They would be able to come in and have more say over what goes on in Fort Hood. And the people that run the Army, not just Fort Hood, if they saw things were changing for the better, they wouldn't put a stop to the interference as they would think of it right now. Yeah, there's lots of fear going on right now at Fort Hood with soldiers. They are afraid and they don't know what's going to happen next. Obviously, their leaders are afraid they're going to lose power and money. But the thing about it is that because there's so much going on outside of the base right now, it's changing the inside of the base too. And people won't be able to hide much longer. So that's a good thing. Now, people know the spark now. Vanessa kind of was an impetus to change. And it shouldn't have been that way. She shouldn't have had to be a sacrifice. But things will get better at Fort Hood because of what happened to her. So, is Fort Hood a death trap? Yeah. But it's going to be changing soon. And if people do go there and they're careful, they can help change it for the better. Vanessa went in blindly thinking she was going to be taken care of. At least now people know they can't do that. They have to go in and realize they have to take care of themselves. And it isn't really like a team or family. It's a hierarchy. And if people want to move up in the army, it's going to have to be through information, not this old way. We can't see the future about it all the way, but this is like a new start once again, and having people steal the souls, I guess you could say, of these kids isn't right, and people are seeing it now out in the open, so it's much better for change to come. And I'm really glad that people inside of Fort Hood are starting to pay attention and that the world's paying attention to them, because if they mess up more, they're going to get more flack politically. I'm really, really proud of what our country has accomplished for the good, but also there's things that have to change in order for us to stay good. And certain people, like a certain orange man, the way that he thinks about people is the old way, and it hurts the people that he deems under him. Of course, that isn't very nice, and being a tyrant running a sort of political army is no different than Fort Hood. So people living out in the world, we're kind of in a Fort Hood that's really spread out and it isn't as intense. I don't want it to be like a prisoner mentality, but it can become like that. Yeah, soon there will be a meeting of the minds for change. Yeah, we can count on the change happening. And new leaders will come and go, will be born. Politics will survive and will become more part of it, for better or for worse. And there is hope. There's hope for the kids to be able to go there and be safe later on. So, answering the question, is Fort Hood a death trap? Yeah, but in time it will change. So that's been TBS. I hope everyone has a good night.